Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Well, hello, Bamise.
Hello. I picked a weird time to try and untangle my cables. Yes, indeed. Hello, Stevie. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well. Back from a little jaunt to the UK, which is why we are late recording this finale episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. But I'm well other than
Yes.
that. How are you?
But how was the UK? How was the UK?
The UK was hot.
Blighty?
Old blighty. It was good. It was hot. Lots of heat and no air conditioners because they don't have that.
They don't have that over there.
We boiled in our own sweat. It was lovely. Quite delightful.
You Brits, you love to boil. Oh, yeah. Well, we're getting a lot of activity on my street. A lot of ambulance police activity. Very fun, very fun. But yeah, Brooklyn, there's no AC here either. So boiling, we are doing as well.
You could have AC. This is the thing. You just choose not to have AC. You enjoy sweating. And
yes, I, like the Brits, enjoy boiling in my own juices.
Ugh.
A sous vide of a man.
Oh, ugh.
Disgusting, right?
Disgusting. So
yeah,
disgusting.
It's gross.
Yeah.
You know what I like is the transformation when you leave the house from hot and sweaty and disgusting to, you clean up and you walk out the door and you're like, gosh, I'm fresh as a daisy.
Well, let's move on from sweat to Star Trek.
Today is a very special day. We've got the last Star Trek to cover. Wait, I thought I'd try the Irish accent. Didn't come out right. We've got the last. Is it Travel the Quality of Mercy? Episode 10? All right. Well, we're going to talk about Season 1, Episode 10 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Today's stardate is stardate 41107.1. And the name of that episode is The Quality of Mercy. And this is a pretty trippy one if you've ever watched the original series.
Oh.
Oh, gosh. I forgot to look at the name of but I assume you have that information of the original episode that they used to.
I don't actually.
Oh,
I didn't.
Well, we might have to Google that because it's they kind of they didn't rip it off or anything, but they used a lot of the stuff from it. I remember watching this episode with my dad. So I remember as I was watching this episode, I was like, huh, wait a second. I added because I did no research. Anyway, before we get into that, we got to talk about Patreon.
Yeah, we have one. So join us on patreon.com/setphasers, where you can be part of Zoom hangs with us, cooking with Aki, bow ties with Aki, and I could teach something. I know what I could teach. I could teach patience with a dancing co-host.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we do Zoom hangs together. We do watch parties together, and it's all just a lot of fun. So we would love to have you there with our Patreon crew at patreon.com/setphasers.
Yes, I believe we might have one coming up in the near future.
Yes.
Because we have this is the briefest break where we're not traveling or on tour.
Yep.
So it might work out. Might not. We might do double up in August or something. But okay. Well, that's out of the way. Let's run it down.
Let's run that puppy down.
It's time to run it down. Can you run it down for me? Tell me what just happened. Can you run it down for me? Let's run that puppy down. That's what they said.
Yeah. In the 100 episodes that we've done, I have never said that. I don't know why I did. But we did, and that's where we are.
I say let's run it down, and I think our new thing will be you say let's run that puppy down, and then you hit the sound bar. All right, we're going to do our new rundown thing today, which is going to be slim and trim. And then we'll have more of a discussion. All right, so what happens in this episode? Enterprise is on the edge of the neutral zone. They're helping out with the outposts that need retrofitting and supplies. We'll begin the episode with Pike in his quarters. He's cooking up a little something, and in walks Captain Batel. Remember Captain Batel from episode 1? They had a little thing going on. And it seems like maybe they still have a thing going on.
I wonder if I have my thing music.
Do you have your thing
My
music?
thing, maybe my Marvin Gaye music. Is it my disco?
In walks Captain Batel.
I do.
Yeah, okay.
There we go. Better late than never.
It walks, yeah, that's right. So they have a thing. She's there on her own mission, which we don't find out much about, but they share a few words about, Pike being, trying to embrace his life now. He's gotten rid of the beard, and he's a captain. He's been a captain for a whole season. So anyway, we flash forward. Pike, Una, and Spock, they're meeting with the commander of Outpost 4, Hansen Al-Salah. The commander's son runs in, interrupting the meetings, and introduces himself because he's so excited about Starfleet. And he turns out to be one of the kids that is in that accident that Pike has in his future that he saw when he was on Boreth with the time crystal. And he's one of the ones who actually does not survive despite Pike's sacrifice. And so he gets freaked out. He leaves. And Una catches up with him, having recognized the name. And she's like, what are you going to do? And he's like, I got to do something. So he goes to his quarters and he starts to dictate a letter to the commander, encouraging him to have his son not join Starfleet. And it's that moment that he's interrupted by who? Future Pike. Yes, Future Pike says, hey, man, you better figure out exactly what to say in that letter because, listen, here's the thing. The future, you save the kids. The accident doesn't happen, but a lot of other stuff goes terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. And Pike's like, what are you talking about, Future Pike? I think I'm just trying to do the right thing. And he's like, actually, you did something wrong and it kind of ruined the whole universe. And he's like, say what? And he's like, yeah, the monks at Boreth, they gave me this time crystal to send you into that future. So Pike gets thrown into the future, and he finds himself officiating a wedding on the Enterprise. And this is when things started to finally look very familiar to moi. And he doesn't know who he's marrying or what he's doing, but he's in the middle of giving a speech about how captains, since the time of sails and boats, had the privilege and honor to marry people on their ships. And then there's a red alert, saved by the klaxon, I wrote. And so he's like, whew, don't have to do that wedding. And he walks onto the bridge. Red alert. Yes. Okay, so maybe we should at this point Google that episode. That is, because that part where Pike is marrying people is part of a particular, it's not called The Edge of Tomorrow. That's the other episode.
All right, you want to Google it?
Let's Google it.
Let's do it.
You can Google
Let's do another one for time.
If you
Want to know.
You can Google that.
And so I found it. Yes. I believe. Oh, what? Huh?
Just added an extra bit. Sometimes we need more time.
Yeah. It's called The Balance of Terror. Is the name of the episode that they I think they must have borrowed actual scenes from that episode. Anyway, we'll get to that later, but now we have the name. So Pike goes to the bridge. There's been an attack on the outpost, so they're still in the neutral zone. And he's like, okay, well, let's get there. Give me a best speed and give me a thing. And he goes to talk to Spock. I need to talk to you now. He convinces Spock to do a mind meld with him, so Spock knows that he is the Pike from a different timeline. And Spock is like, well, if you're sent here to learn something, then you should do exactly what you would ordinarily do, because that's the only way you're going to learn about the future that it is. So it's been 7 years from the present, and they're just going to keep going on as they do. They find out that Outpost 4 has been all jacked up. They call for backup. There's only one ship close. It's the USS Farragut, which is La'an's ship. La'an's on a different ship. And they get an audio hail from the ship, and it's Commander Hansen, who he just spoke to in that different past And he reports that the outposts 2, 3, and 8, they're all gone. They were destroyed by some sort of unknown weapon. He switches over to visual, and it shows that the station is indeed like all messed up, wires coming out and everything. And he says like a ship just appeared, hit us with a high energy weapon, and then left. And then he's like, oh, my sensors detect movement nearby. And they all look. It's a Romulan bird of prey. It fires on the outpost. Hansen, pew, 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 fire. The asteroid blows up, and then the bird of prey disappears. Cloaking. Not enough time to sit around and think about that, because just at that moment, the USS Farragut arrives. And who should be the captain of the USS Farragut but none other than Captain James T. Kirk, Sam's brother. And Kirk is there to offer assistance. And they're like, how are we going to track this thing? And there's a little bit of confusion about who is in charge of what. But Spock has figured out a way to track the Romulan bird of prey loosely by using sort of their gravitational signature. And the debate about how to handle it is like whether this is an act of war. Should they pursue and fight it? Should they not pursue it? You know, Kirk and Ortegas are definitely on the side of let's engage. And Pike is much more sanguine, more like, oh, well, let's find out what's going on. We don't want to start a war. We can't do it without authorization. So he has Uhura send a message back to Starfleet to find out if they can engage. And they decide to track the Romulans in the meantime. Kirk comes on board. There's a brief discussion. They decide, listen, whatever happens, we should do a pincer movement, knock them down, and then be able to talk at least, you know, sort of knock out their capabilities, since we have these two ships and we can track them in the tail of this comet. It'll be easier to see them. They try to do this move on their different ships. It goes completely wrong. USS Farragut has to sacrifice itself in order for the Enterprise to get away. The ship gets wounded beyond repair. Pike is able to transport everyone in from the Farragut in an emergency, but both the bird of prey and the Enterprise are now completely also jacked up and unable to like kind of fire on each other. So it's kind of a weird stalemate. Pike goes to transport, meets La'an. She hugs him. He's like, hey, have you seen Una? Because the person he hasn't seen in this future is Una. And La'an's like, I'm not allowed to contact her. You know that. And Pike's like, say what? But he doesn't have time to do that because then Kirk comes aboard and he's like, we need to have a discussion immediately. And they go to Pike's room, and Kirk's very upset that Pike's wasn't more, I don't know how to describe it, not bloodthirsty, but more decisive in his war action when the moment came. And that's why he thinks they lost. So Pike is like, you know what? I'm going to do what I would do. Since the bird of prey and the Enterprise are both injured, we're going to make contact with this Romulan. Oh, I forgot to say that in the interim, they were able to decode a message, and they found out what no one knew what Romulans looked like. They hadn't had contact in 100 years. They look like, well, to the unlearned Star Trek fan, just like Vulcans, although they are very different. So Pike is able to speak to the Romulan commander. It's a tense standoff, but they decide to do a good faith gesture, take 2 hours, bury the dead, and then, you know, they're both going to race to repair both their engines and their weapons, and then we'll, you know, resume either hostilities or negotiations. So that works. Pike and Spock talk. Pike learns a little bit more about Una, something about a betrayal, but then he gets interrupted once again by Kirk showing up. And Kirk's like, hey, I got an idea. I think I just need to borrow a shuttle. And Pike's like, okay. Meanwhile, Spock goes to effect repairs on the phasers with the new engineer, who is just a disembodied arm with a Scottish accent. I thought we were going to get to see Scotty, but no Scotty this time.
I also wonder who voiced it. I couldn't find that on the interwebs.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
it almost
I didn't even think
like,
so. I was like, could be anyone.
It could have been original Scotty, and they, you know, mastered it
like
or
they
whatever.
Just took some...
Yeah, they could just take
that
the
makes
voice.
sense.
Could have done. I haven't found out whether that's true yet.
Mr. Doohan himself just
Perhaps.
took some clips. That makes sense. It was just an arm and a red shirt. But anyway, that's what Spock is doing. The 2 hours end. They make contact again. The Romulan and Pike almost seem to like maybe they'll come to some sort of like agreement not to fight or something like that at the very least. But then a bunch of Romulans show up because dun 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 side plot on the Romulan ship. The Romulan commander has been dealing with some insubordination. While he's an experienced soldier who doesn't want to see more fighting, he has underlings under him who are more loyal to the state and to the war. And so, without his knowing, they contacted like Romulan high command, and so an entire Romulan fleet shows up along with a Praetor, and the commander realizes he's been duped. He knows he can't do anything. Pike speaks to the Praetor, who is completely uninterested in peace. Kirk shows up with his backup plan, which is a bunch of like haulers and minor ships, but they know that the Romulans don't know what Enterprise ships look like, so he's got to pretend fake armada. So it's a standoff. It's a one of those things. And but then the Romulan commander is forced to move his ship forward and be sacrificed for his failure, and he's destroyed by his own fleet. And then the Romulans thereafter, controlled by the Praetor, attack the Enterprise. And so things go completely wrong. Kirk is able to buy the Enterprise time to get away because everything is down and they don't have like warp stuff, by throwing his like fake fleet in the way of the Romulan fleet. They go for it. The ploy works. They manage to get Kirk back on board and they go to warp. But they do take a few direct hits, and they take one sidelong hit as they go away. And when Pike goes to sickbay, Spock is dead. He has paid the price. So afterward, Pike and Kirk talk. They learn a little bit more about each other. Pike realizes, okay, this guy Kirk's not so bad, because they had been kind of rubbing up against each other. He touches the time crystal, returns to the present. He's like, I got to delete this letter. I can't let this happen. He talks to Spock. They share a very touching Romulan human moment where Spock actually uses the name Chris instead of Captain. And then, just when you think all is well, Batel returns to the ship, says she needs to see the captain and first officer. And her thing all along, she was there to arrest Una for being an Illyrian, for engaging in eugenics experiments. And Pike's like, absolutely not. He's going to fight, but then Una's like, no, Captain, don't let this happen. And so she gets arrested. And Batel's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't want this to happen. And Pike's like, I am too, because this isn't over. But ironically, that is the end of episode 10, season 1, Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. It ends on a cliffhanger.
Indeed.
Oh, boy, let's chat about that. Wow.
I say, darling, let's do a quick chat about that.
Yes,
let's do.
I do quite love these, your creative use of sound effects.
Thank you so
this
much.
episode. Ba-do-ba-do-bum. Flop. Yeah, so a ton of stuff to talk about here, but I mean, the basic thing is we learned that if Kirk is not in charge of the Enterprise, an all-out war starts with the Romulans.
Yeah. And if Spock cannot live, the whole timeline goes to shit.
Oh my God. If there's no Spock, everything goes to crap. So it's all, so, oh yes. So the whole thing with, so do you know about that episode?
Nope.
What's it called? Not The Edge. I
What
keep
did you
calling
call
it
it?
The Edge of Forever. The Balance of Terror.
No.
So in that episode, Kirk is in the neutral zone with the Enterprise. Same situation happens. The ship shows up, blows up a bunch of things. Outpost 4 is like the speech that the guy gives where he's like, they came out of nowhere. And then he gets blown up. That whole thing happens, but it's Kirk who's the captain. The whole standoff with the Romulan happens. But instead of like suing for peace, Kirk and the Romulan, using Spock's like gravitational thing, are able to like, they like circle each other, and it's a very Hunt for Red October style episode. But then Kirk takes out that Romulan ship so that they can't get back and report about it. So it's a totally different, thing without all the Praetors, and the Romulans don't declare war as they do in our episode. So that's kind of a cool thing. And they used all these various like actual dialogue from that original TOS episode, but with Kirk in it. So it was a cool for nerds. I didn't realize it till things were ending. I was like, they're using actual stuff. And the bridge was new. The bridge was the Enterprise bridge from TOS. Anyway, that was cool. But,
Which bridge?
My main concern, did I say bridge?
Yeah. So the bridge was from the original TOS.
Yes, yeah. The bridge that Pike walks onto is slightly different than the one we've been seeing all season. It looks more like Kirk's bridge.
Yes, fair.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure what you're talking
That's
about.
what I meant.
Got it.
Now these terms, the original and they all are very confusing since we're playing timey-wimey.
Timey-wimey.
But I guess the real question is, Una,
Yeah. Well,
who cares about the Romulans?
is that why we never see her again? So we're like, are we setting at least 2 or 3 characters up possibly to not come back? So we've got La'an, who's left. We've got Hemmer, who died.
Yeah.
And Una Chinrile,
Yes.
who's buggered off to take some time and then will likely come back to the Farragut. Or who will come back to the Farragut.
No. Una Chin Riley, that's the whole thing.
Oh, sorry. Sorry,
She's-
Una. Una, who's gone off to a
Yeah.
penal colony because she's Illyrian. My bad.
Yes, because she's Illyrian. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm curious if this is not my thinking. Here's my thinking.
It's my
My thinking is that what's going to happen is because Una gets arrested, La'an's going to come back so they can rescue her from the penal colony. Right? They got to bring number 1 back, right? Come on.
But-
We love her too much.
But then she couldn't work in Starfleet. So
Pike's got to do something, man.
he's going to
got
do something, but I don't think he'll bust her out of prison. Do you?
No, but maybe
that's
there'll
not
be a
Pike.
whole legal
That's
drama.
Kirk. That's a Kirk move.
That's a Kirk move, but maybe
Yeah.
Pike, Pike, he sometimes gets cowboy. He's not quite as much of a cowboy, but,
No.
he might go in there and go, listen up, you admirals. You ain't going to keep Una Chin Riley away from me.
Mm.
That was my cowboy.
I do wish that eye rolls would translate to audio.
I mean, I think everyone can tell from your cold silences
Can you?
when I've said something completely absurd. What? You don't think
Alright.
Pike go in there and hitch up his britches and say, listen up here, Admiral April. You gonna give me back my first officer, or there's gonna be hell to pay.
I can't comment on that.
All right,
But-
fine.
Anyway, okay, so we've got at least 3 crew members who are potentially out for season 2. We're not
Yeah.
entirely, well, certainly Hemmer's out, but
Hemmer's definitely.
he's
yes.
out, but I'm sure he will be back in season 2 in some form or other, whether it's, flashbacks or alternative
Ooh.
timelines or, like in Trek, the actors that they love, they find a way. So, and I think they've said that with
We never
Hemmer.
see him die. He's one of those deaths that's like
True.
off the cliff and into the ice, which could be
Yes.
anything.
But I think, Hemmer, or I should say Bruce Horak, and Henry Alonso Myers have both said that he will be back in some form. Whether it's he goes into, perhaps, I don't know if he could go, cross-track. I don't know whether he could go into Discovery. I don't know. Could he show up as...
Like they find his body in
I
the
don't know
ice
whether
1,000 years later. or
I
whatever.
don't
Wild.
know.
I would love that.
That'd be quite cool. Anyway, point being, Bruce Horak as an actor will be back in some form or other in the Trek verse.
Wild, wild, wild.
Indeed.
Well, and also, let's not forget that back in the day, Trek, people played like 40 characters.
Right.
People would show up and be like, this person, that person,
Yeah.
Jeremy, what's his tush, was on like 4 different things.
That's true.
4 different people.
And
Can't
when you're
remember
in
his last name right now.
and when you're in a suit like that, you can come back in various other suits or as yourself or whatever.
Exactly. Precisely. Yeah. When you're you're an alien. As they say.
Excuse me. Shall we talk about Captain Pike?
Yes.
Well, let's maybe talk about him as a captain. How do we think he has
Ooh.
performed overall as a captain? Now that we've seen him in a full season, and now we can fully compare him, because that's really what people do. We're like, oh, who's the best captain?
Mhm.
Who's your favorite captain? How does he stack up to previous Trek captains?
Listen, every captain is great.
Mm.
That's my opinion. But I do think, I think this final episode does underscore how Pike is different from Kirk.
Yes.
And that, Pike is the captain we needed for certain. I think, the story of Star Trek is that the captains we need for the challenges we have rise to the surface. And so Pike is someone we needed for that whole business with Discovery Season 2. It's great that Pike was in charge of the Enterprise. He was able to hold things down. He wasn't freaked out by the whole timey-wiminess of it. Sacrificed himself, went to Boreth, did all that business, found out about how he dies. And he's great for the Enterprise as it is now, doing their mission and discovering places and, but later on, what was weird about this?
What?
It was like sort of an argument for how Pike is too sort of like even keeled to be a captain of the Enterprise in this sort of unstable era with the Romulans and the Klingon Empire. That like as these conflicts happen, you need someone a little bit more shooting from the hip, certain that they're taking the right course style, James Kirk style.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of what this episode underscored for me. But I do also feel I've never considered Kirk the greatest captain.
No. But he is, it's Kirk is the original, and it's a bit like, Sean Connery is the original Bond.
Mhm.
People really call back to him for being the best because he was the first. I
Right.
don't think he was the best. I don't think Sean Connery was the best either.
Wow, you're a Roger Daltrey fan, huh?
Well, Roger Daltrey is the Who. I think you're thinking Roger Moore.
That's what I meant.
That's what you meant.
But you don't remember when Roger Daltrey played Bond? Yeah. Yes, I meant
You were
Roger
thinking
Moore.
Timothy
Roger Moore?
Dalton. You mixed up Timothy Dalton and
Yes,
Roger Moore.
that's what I thought.
That's
Timothy
what you
Dalton
did.
and
You
Roger.
did.
My bad.
You did a
yes.
merge
I was
there.
like, sure, there was a D.
But it was so fun just to play with you.
That was very good.
Yeah.
Now I can only imagine Roger Daltrey as Bond, which is very weird. You don't have to answer this question because we're talking about Star Trek. But who's your favorite Bond then?
I think this is because I grew up with him, but I think Pierce Brosnan was my favorite Bond.
Pierce Brosnan?
Until the last one that he did, because I just want to remove that Bond film from the timeline completely. It was the
Yeah, that
shittest
one
Bond
was awful.
movie.
That wasn't The Edge of Tomorrow. Or was that whatever? That was garbage. Yeah, that last one he did.
Oh, Madonna did the soundtracks.
Anyway.
That was like, it wasn't No Time to Die because that's the last one, but it was like,
Yeah.
Never Say Never Again. No, it wasn't. I forget.
It
Let me-
wasn't. it
shall I
was-
Google that?
Yeah. Anyway,
Pierce Brosnan.
you should Google that. And I'll sing 1, 2. No, you can Google that.
Die Another Day. Die
Ugh, die another day.
You wanna die another day. It was everything was bad, from the theme tune to the
Mhm,
plot
right.
was
From
horrendous. The
Jump.
vanishing
From
cars.
Jump.
Fuck off.
Ugh.
Just no. The villains were bad. Like, oh god, that guy was
Mhm.
hammy. It was horrendous. I think he's Judi Dench's son. You would
Oh,
think he could
wow.
act better than that, being Judi Dench's son, but no. Anyway,
It's not
that's
Hereditary.
this
alas.
is a rant
so-
for another podcast. But anyway,
We have so many spin-off podcasts we got to do.
we do. We do. I'm surprised we don't actually. Well, no, I'm not surprised. If we had more time, I'm sure we would. I think the first one we would tackle would be rom-coms.
Yeah, if we were independently wealthy, we would do a podcast a day.
That's true. We would.
Star Trek, rom-coms, Bond.
Mondays
know.
it would be rom-coms. Tuesdays it would be
Yeah,
Star
yeah.
Trek.
It would be like must. Yeah, we'd have like a network, and it'd just be the two of us talking about
Yeah,
IPs.
that's true.
Great. I'm not going to get us further off track by talking about more stuff about this, but I desperately want to. In any case, I would say I like Pike as a captain. He may not be my favorite captain, but he's up there. In terms of like, he is like a prototype for Picard.
Yes.
He's less of that cowboy thing, but maybe it's not.
He's warmer.
what-
He's much warmer.
He's warmer. He likes to cook.
Mm.
Steady relationship with Batel, who now has stabbed him in the back, whereas Kirk is like, a total horn dog.
Yeah.
By the time he gets this Kirk didn't seem like, I didn't buy that this Kirk would be like, hey, yeah, sleeping with the babe of the week.
Mm-hmm.
The Kirk, the guy that they.
What did you think of him? Wesley, oh, bollocks, what's his name? Somebody Wesley. Strange New Worlds.
I think, pretty sure it was Roger Daltrey.
It was not him. Paul Wesley.
Roger Daltrey is Paul Wesley. I liked him. I thought he didn't have quite the like, yeah, but he played it well.
I didn't buy it at all. I was like, really? You? Kirk? Didn't look like him. He didn't act like him. I was just like,
But you have to imagine that if he had gone in there and been like, Pike, you can't do what you're doing, that would have been like, ugh, I can't watch this guy do a Shatner impression for an hour.
But when it comes to Spock and how Ethan Peck did Spock, he really took the time and the care to pronounce things the way Spock did or whatever. This guy, I just don't feel like he's done any of that. He's just gone, I'm just going to do it my way. I could be wrong.
This is an interesting thought. It didn't jive with my William Shatner Kirk, but I was willing to accept this Kirk in this alternate timeline.
All right. I mean, I think when we go back to the regular timeline, I think he'll still be the same actor and he'll still be doing it the same way.
Of course.
All right.
But maybe listen, this was his first thing. You know, he didn't get to have the buildup of like, I'm silent and in my head like Spock did in season 2 of Discovery, where we're like, he looks like Spock, but he's not acting like Spock yet, you know? Anyway, we'll see. We'll see if he hits his stride. But, I thought this episode was so expertly done, bringing in that episode, the name of which I'll never remember, The Balance of Terror. I thought it was fun. Should we move on to quotable moments?
Let's do quotable moments.
Okay.
You
I
go.
have 3 or 4. Let's see. I loved well, this is from the original and from this, the Romulan commander before he dies says, "You and I are of a kind. In a different reality, I could have called you friend." Says it to both Kirk and Spock.
Yeah.
In those 2 different episodes. Pike's realizing that he's in the future and he has to live it the bad way in order to find out what he's got to learn, says the only way to discover the terrible future is to live it.
Yes.
And I also thought of the nice thing he said when Batel was like, "Hey, you seem like you're a little bit better, even though I missed the beard." He says, "Someone told me I had better places to be, so I'm trying to be there. Better places."
All right.
Did I steal any of yours?
No, you didn't. I don't know. I was just too focused, I think, to come up with any quotes. I was looking more for the Easter eggs and thinking ahead. I was focusing on who was playing Scotty, and it turned out the actor's name was Matt Wolfe. He is known as being a voice actor, so we don't think that he will be playing Scotty. And actually, Henry Alonso Myers has confirmed that Scotty will not be in season 2.
Will not be in season 2.
Correct.
Huh? That's very good.
Scotty isn't going to be one of those. If we have lost the 3 characters that we think we may have, then they are not replaced. Well, certainly Scotty is not going to be someone who replaces them.
That's curious because he's already on the ship.
I can't do it, Captain. I don't have the right.
Oh wait, no.
I don't have the writers.
He's on. Okay. He's on the ship in the future, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Scotty's not coming aboard in season 2. That was the future.
Yeah, that's 5 years ago.
Yes. Well, then finally, I'll wrap up with Kirk delivering a very Kirk-like line when he gets Pike behind closed doors after the Farragut has been destroyed. He says, "You flinched, you deliberated, and we lost."
Fair. That's a Kirk
I
line.
like that. That was very Kirky.
You flinched.
Yeah.
Deliberated. We lost. Was that good?
Flinched, Pike. You flinched, Chris. You deliberated, and we lost. I don't know. Is this a contest? Are we having a Shatner off?
That could be a fun
Deborah
drinking
Shatner.
game. Yeah. Oh,
Do we have any news this week?
I do have some news. It's not a lot of news, so I don't think I should give it the fanfare. However,
Okay.
August 25th, Lower Decks is back. So we have 5 weeks until we have new Trek, more Trek. It's all about the
Did you
new
see
Trek.
that trailer? It looks super fun.
I have not seen it yet. I was busy.
Check it out.
Unfortunately, I don't think we can play it because that leads us into licensing issues. However, watch it on your own time.
We can't do that.
Yeah.
We want them to like us, not sue us. But listeners, go check out the trailer for Star Trek. Lower Decks. Looks like it's a real romp of a season. You remember that Mariner's mother has been, like Una, Chin Riley, has been arrested for blowing up Packlid planet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Oh, those Packlids. Those pesky Packlids.
Pesky Packlids.
But-
Is that the only news? That's the only thing I saw that was announced.
Yes, and I keep this on my news events because don't forget that the Wrath of Khan is on going to the big screen September 4th. Get your tickets at fathomevents.com.
From hell's heart I stab at thee. I'm so mad that I'm not going to be able to see it. I'm going to be on stupid tour.
I'm so sorry. I wish we could go
Boo,
together.
yes.
We should go and we should do we should have a school outing to go and see the bridge, original bridge. I told you, we talked about that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right upstate. Yeah, we have plans.
Yeah.
We got plans.
We got
I still
plans.
have a sticket on my computer that says Picard Wine Box.
Yes, we also want that too.
It's so we have many. We got to drink. We got to go visit the original bridge.
Well, now we've got a break. You can come up and we can watch some Trek together, and we can do some watch-alongs because we haven't done that for a while.
We've not done a watch along in quite some time.
Not IRL. Hashtag IRL.
Hashtag in real life.
Mm.
Is this the real life? And that's all I can sing without us having to pay royalties, I'm pretty sure.
Well, apparently, if you do
let's-
your own version of it, then you're good. So you have to do
yeah?
a real remix.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? That's my
Okay.
90s.
I don't know if we'll get away with that, but we'll try.
Britney / Christina Aguilera.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Rendition. My impersonation of amalgam of those two singing the beginning of Bohemian Rhapsody. Okay, let's talk about next time.
Next time on Set Phasers.
Well, next time,
like
we don't know.
yeah,
We
like the
haven't-
Beach Boys
yeah.
sing. God only knows what we'll be doing next time.
And,
like that?
Yeah, I do like that. It was very good. I was trying to think of another Beach Boys song, but I can't think of one now.
Well, we're gonna
Ah.
figure something out. Either we'll watch some movies, or we'll watch some old tracks, or we'll do a Shatner off with actual lines from Star Trek. Spy. But either way, thank you so much for listening as we wrap up this first season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and they're already recording season 2. So we have something that, the Trek hits keep on rolling.
They've wrapped it.
Did they wrap it already?
Yep, they've wrapped it. They are producing, editing, pulling it all together. So they have wrapped it. I think.
Well, then God only knows how soon we'll get season 2, but we know we've got Lower Decks, we got Discovery, I'm pretty sure is coming out in between that, then Picard early next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and let's do it again. And
Let's do it
don't
again.
don't worry,
Were
baby.
you just looking up?
Yes, we'll have fun when Lower
Okay,
Decks comes
stop
out.
it. No. You don't get to just rattle off a bunch of jokes.
Why not? It's just
you do.
I mean, I'm just looking for the good vibrations here. Let's not be heroes and villains.
Are you quite finished?
Yes.
All right. Now I want the eye roll sound.
Oh.
Okay. Anyway, you can find our episodes wherever you get your podcast. We drop them every Monday or late when we have to travel and stuff, but we're going to figure out some content to do until we get to Star Trek Lower Decks. And thank you so much for listening.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. We'll be back very soon. Until then, I am Stevie Mans.
And and you and I are one of a kind in a different reality. I could have called you friend. And this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek star. Oh, God.
Computer
Yes!
and program.
I tried.